Oconee County Planning Commission meeting to order. Today's Monday, November 18th, 2024. First thing will be invocation. Mr. Nix, could I get you to lead us in that?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you would. Heavenly Father, we ask that you please watch over this committee and the planning staff and guide us to wise and safety-conscious decisions in support of the public. We also ask that you watch over the county law enforcement, first responders, and other county workers as they perform their duties, that they may return home safely to their families after every shift. And we ask that you please watch over the county and state leaders as they work to make the county and state a better place to live each day. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Spicer, can I get you to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Got last meeting's minutes. Do I hear an approval of those minutes? Hear a motion to approve?
So moved. To approve.
Second?
Second.
Are there any changes that we need to make? All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Public comments for non-agenda items, we do not have any this evening. We do appreciate the folks that are in attendance. Commission member comments. Does anyone up here have anything to say? Hope everyone has a good and joyful Thanksgiving. And then I don't see staff comments, but I'm going to ask if there are any staff comments.
The only thing is if you have not responded to the pending FOIA, please do that. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
All right, an update regarding the 5-year comprehensive plan.
Public comments, please.
And I appreciate you coming up and talking to us about it.
Sure, happy to do that. Evening, everybody. My name's Chip Bentley, work with the Appalachian Council of Governments, and we're going to be working with you guys on doing the 5-year review of your comprehensive plan. I'm really just here today to kind of give you an overview of the process and talk about that some and let y'all ask any questions about it. The 5-year review is set out in the state legislative state code that you have to do that. You have a 10-year comprehensive plan. You go and evaluate every 5 years. It's not meant to be an overhaul of the plan. It's more like a look in to see where we are in the process. Back in 2020, you identified goals and strategies that you're supposed to implement. As we say with all plans, once you write it and you're done, it could change the next day. I believe y'all adopted it maybe a few weeks after everybody went home for COVID, right? So things have changed since y'all adopted it and that process you went through. So this is a chance for us to kind of look at what you're doing, what was stated in that, what's working, what's not, and then what you might change and update from that standpoint. The process we'll take is we'll start looking at the data now to kind of get that together, assess kind of what the trends are, what it said in the plan, what they've happened in the 5 years since, and see how that might impact things, and then start talking with you guys to get your perception about what's going on, because the data it tells you a little bit of the story. It doesn't tell you the whole story. So we'll then kind of talk about that with the Planning Commission, get your feedback on what, might be the reasons for those trends, and what's behind that, and then take that and kind of assess, looking at goals and strategies, the steps that you said you were going to take, and see where you are. What's working, what's not, what should change, what needs to be altered, things like that. So we update it from that standpoint. So your input will be really important as we kind of figure out that puzzle and put it all together there. Right now, hope to, over the next couple of months, be doing that data, analysis and everything, and put that together, come to y'all maybe in January at your meeting to talk some about it. Begin some conversations about that with you guys. Hopefully this doesn't take, it takes a few months, maybe by April, May, we kind of wrap up a draft that, you guys can look at and then be able to go on to council. We'll see. We always give an estimated time frame. It really just depends on the discussion, how much you want to, talk about things, how much you want to get back into things. So I'm going to have a couple of questions here, but one of them is, it's like, it depends on what you guys want to look at and change and things like that. And if there's specific issues you want us to take a deeper dive on, maybe that takes a little bit longer. We'll figure that out as we go. So, so like I said, hopefully by the summer, you'd have an updated plan for council. And then with that, we'd kind of maybe help you think through, okay, how do we strategically look at what the next, full update's gonna be in 5 years, and how do you position yourself for that? So, these are always good opportunities. We tell people when they do plans, it's really good to, review them periodically to see where you are, because everybody puts things in plans, and if you don't go back and assess, what your success rate is on that and what's happening and everything, it really gets hard to really measure progress and adjust as necessary. So this will be a chance to kind of see what's happened since then. And like I said, any plan you adopted in March of 2020 probably had some challenges out of the gate. And so things, it may not be things can happen, it's just they didn't start on at the same time frame. Stuff you thought were short-term goals, maybe are longer-term goals because things couldn't happen for a little while. Or maybe you went past some things because the federal government threw a lot of money at everybody and you had extra money to do a lot of stuff. This is what we'll find out as we go through this, so. So this is just really brief. I want you guys to be able to ask any questions you have of me. I want to kind of make sure we kind of we're on the same page with expectations for this. One thing I would be kind of curious if there's some specific issues you guys have just on the top of your head about things y'all are going through now that you'd like us to look into as we look at that, whether it's data, trends, or specific issues that are coming up that you want to, maybe address within goal strategies, things like that. So any other questions y'all might have, feel free to throw those out, and then also, we'll talk a little bit about public input in a second.
Actually, what I'd like to do is, we've got one public comment for this.
Okay.
So but I would like for you to, be waiting in the wings, because we do have a series of questions, I'm sure, because I know that I've got a few.
Okay.
So if we can have the public comment, because there may be questions that are brought up because of that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Pearson is our public comment for this today.
Hi, guys. To me, this is something y'all were assigned to do. You're wasting $7,500. We got conservatives on this board, and y'all are supposed to be there to help save money, not spend money on something that y'all were appointed to do when y'all were appointed to this commission. Y'all can do it. We did it before. It can be done again. Y'all know what needs to be done. You have staff. You've got staff down that hallway. You got staff down this hallway. That's what they're there for, is to help y'all with these kind of things and stop spending the county's money that y'all are supposed to be conservatives. This is not conservative. When y'all can do a job, you don't hire somebody to do it. Y'all are smart enough, bright enough to know what needs to be done. You have staff to back you up. You have staff down these hallways to gather the information. You're wasting $7,500 plus your salaries, what little it is. It's just a waste of money. You're supposed to be here to save money. That's what the conservative movement is about. Saving the county's money, not spending it frivolously, whatever that word is. Anyway, y'all can do the job. We did it before. This is not, most of you are not new to this thing. You know how to gather information. I mean, if y'all can't, we have staff that can find out. For that matter, Mr. Corley can find out how many people have moved in, approximately. You're never gonna get an exact figure, but the update, maybe on the 1 in 5 years, when you have to redo the whole entire comp plan, maybe you might need some help at that point. This is just an update. And y'all could do that on your own and quit wasting county money. And leave it in the pot. You might need it for something else that actually needs to be done. This is something y'all can do on your own. You're smart enough, every one of you. And I just feel that y'all need to do this on your own and quit spending money. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Sorry if I jumped the gun, Secretary.
No, that's quite all right. We appreciate you coming in and speaking to all this, and so I feel like several of us probably have questions. Does somebody want to fire away? Because I've got several as well. Yes, sir.
I'll start. I think we discussed this a couple meetings ago, but how do you measure progress on items in the comp plan when there are no specific measures provided by the goals and whatnot?
That will be part of the discussion. You know, I've looked to see what they were in general, if there's been progress made towards any of those goals. And I get maybe there's not specific measures in there, but we'll try and assess that through, you know, talks with you guys and staff to see what's been done in those areas and try and come up with some kind of measurement to show what's been happening. I don't, you know, we write the initial plan, so we're gonna work with what we got.
Right. To me, if it's subjective and not objective in a lot of cases, as far as the specific goals, I'm not sure Frankie's not right that we couldn't divide it up and each one of us take a section and update it and then let Mr. Coley back us up on what we find. Save some money.
That's your is that, any other questions at the moment?
That's it for now.
I've got a couple of questions. So the comp plan, when we did the comp plan, it was pre-COVID 2020. And it was, since that time, South Carolina has become the #2 inbound state in the nation. We see that in everything that we do, just going to the grocery store. There are several components of that comp plan that are now clearly outdated. And I was just looking through some of the comp plan stuff, some of the components. You've got economic development, you've got housing, you've got transportation, you've got community facilities. Is part of what you all do to update those segments, or is it just to look at the goals and say, oh, y'all did a good job, or no, you didn't?
No, it's to update those segments. So that data collection part that we'll do and everything will be looking at, you know, what was talked about, trends, what you guys foresaw from a, you know, growth perspective, things like that, and then to assess what's happened in the last 5 years in the interim, see what's changed and everything, and bring that to the discussion. You know, when you're correct, and that things have changed, we are now a fast-growing state, you know, we will try and dive into what do housing starts look like, where is it happening? Clearly sewer has changed considerably since then with Sewer South, things like that that are going on in the county, and look at how that might be impacting growth trends, so that you can have that kind of background information as we start to look at the goals and strategies you identified. I think, without knowing for sure, the way I envision this is this almost becomes an addendum to the plan, so we won't like redo the entire plan, but we will have an addendum that talks about each of those sections and what we found, you know, changes and trends, what stayed the same, what's changed, and where that's going. So it'll be a briefer, you know, kind of summary of each of those.
The state requires how many segments to be identified? Is it 10 or 11?
It's 11 now with resiliency.
And so you all, if I understand, you're saying that those 3 or 4 pages of information, you all are going to update the details of that information and anywhere it would need to be updated.
Right, and so we'll try and take that detail in each one and provide the pertinent information, so, for each one about what those key trends are and what's changed, and how that might impact your goals and strategies and how you're assessing that. So we'll look at each section to kind of put that together for you.
Okay. As far as the data, reliability of that data, when we looked at the comp plan, some stuff actually, we weren't able to get true updates because we were still working off of 2015 figures or 2018 figures. How reliable are we going to be able to expect you all diving in and getting accurate information?
So there'll be 2 parts. A bulk of the data will be based on census data. So one good part about it is when you did your plan in 2020, there was not a full census update. There has been since then. So I think it will reflect more accurate numbers than probably your 2015 estimates in 2020 or things like that. We'll also have some interim estimates probably for at least 23. And maybe by the time maybe for 24, depending on when they come out, of what the interim projections are about your current growth. So we'll be able to kind of, you know, some of it'll be going backwards to verify, looking at the census numbers and saying, okay, how close were you when you adopted the plan? Because that census occurred then and it's a little more accurate, and then look at what those updates are and trends are now. The second part of that is doing a little bit of ground truthing. So working with James and his staff to kind of identify what the like housing starts are, where building permits, try and figure out maybe a little more minutely where things are happening on the ground and see how that jives with population growth estimates and things like that right now, so.
And I see a cost estimate in here of $7,500 and some timeframes and things like that. Do you feel like that's an accurate assessment to be able to update the comp plan with robust information and information that should be reliable?
Yes, we will provide you reliable information and what's necessary there. Our cost estimates from the Council of Governments, we're technically a nonprofit. We operate as sort of consultants from that standpoint, but we're sort of subsidized. We have additional funds that come in to help us from different sources. So, from a true price cost standpoint, that's not, if you went out on the street on a private side, that would not be, in the ballpark of what they were offering you. So that's what we just kind of need to cover some basic costs to get this done, and then we'll be able to go and do all that research and bring that data in. Those are sources we have available to us, and be able to pull that.
I know everybody else is thinking questions here, but I've got two more here real quick. James, as far as the normal process, I realize that it would not be within your job description to look at transportation updates and research, or go through community facilities, or go through housing, or go through economic development, or some of these other elements. Those would all be outside organizations and really not in your job purview. When a county does an update, is it typical to go through ACOG to do that? Or is this something that you all are recommending we do? And then the second part of that question, is it already budgeted from a council standpoint?
So yes, it's in our professional services budget already for the year. You can do it any number of ways. So you can go outside third-party consultant, you can have consultants that are on staff for some, are on retainer basically, that are already contracted. For some counties, you can do it internally. We have a couple restraints right now for our staff, in that we're back to 2 people in our planning office. We have lost another person. We are a little behind where we need to be with our permits right now. So our time is limited, and we're trying to focus on that. The other thing is we will certainly be working with them on these, and we would be responsible for getting that data from all those departments ultimately. And we'll still have responsibility for getting and facilitating all those conversations.
So my personal thought is, if it's something that's already budgeted for, $7,500, you can't get an employee for 6 months for anywhere near $7,500.
It is cheaper than we could do it ourselves, honestly, just looking at an hourly rate.
So from a standpoint of that, my concern is about us doing it up here, is in looking back at that old comprehensive plan. Again, the change from 2020 to today is so dramatic in so many areas. I'm not confident that any of us as a single or as a group of 2 or 3 would look at a paragraph and truly be able to dissect those details and come up and say, okay, this is the new accurate information, because we went to Columbia to get this piece and we went to here to get that piece. And we're so different than what we were in 2020 that I really think that getting professional help, if you all can give us reliable information, is good. I don't know that 2020 was truly reliable, because again, we were looking at data that hadn't been there, but now we have a census, now we have past COVID, with all the change that's brought in. I would hope we would be able to get much more reliable information now than what we were working with then. And a staff that's been here for a while now at this point. So if this would be a normal route and it's already budgeted for, I don't think we could perform what I'm hoping that you're selling. What other questions do people have?
I have a question. Public input on issues. When you go after the community's residents, focus groups, online surveys, and public meetings, is this your intention, or is this a guarantee you're gonna do these things, or is this a maybe? Or?
This is a question I have for y'all, which is so the review is not as robust as the 10-year document.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's that look in that planning commission and council do to see where we are on what we said we were gonna do, and then what the trends are out there that impacts your goals and strategies. And so we are open to different elements of it. I don't think there's a basic requirement that update has one public meeting. That's the state code. There's one that's the only requirement, so they can review a draft. I'm opening it up to you guys, and that's not something you have to decide tonight, but what you would like from that standpoint. There are different things we can do, a survey, some other things to assess some of that, an open house or something like that. But I wanted to open that up to y'all and what y'all's expectations or desires were for that, because I would say in our experience that, maybe one upfront meeting for people to come and comment on the plan and what they see and what they think has changed and everything would be okay and could work, or maybe a survey, one or the other, or maybe both. But I don't think it needs to be as many meetings and as much input, because in theory, you're not making drastic changes to the plan. You're just making tweaks to the plan, so it's not the same as the original planning process. But that is something we kind of use you guys to help guide us on what you want to have in that process as we go.
If I remember correctly, we used an outside firm for the last one, and it was significantly more money. And some of the elements I feel like were a copy paste and not necessarily, yes, I voted that this is approved, but I don't know that we necessarily got our money's worth at the time. But I think we've had much more of a dramatic change in the county in the last 4 years than we saw in the previous 5 to 6 years. And so my thought is I don't want us to get to Band-Aid something or pass it through just to meet state minimums, and then when we get to our 5-year mark, have to spend another 70 or 80 grand to play catch up on 10 years. If we could at that point just add to a little bit. In other words, I don't see the next 5 years being as dramatic as what the last 5 years have been since COVID, is my personal thought. Yes, sir.
So this is just information for the public. How many labor hours do you think you'll have in updating this plan? Just a rough estimate.
That's a great question. That budget's based on 100 hours basically, but I would anticipate that it would be more than 100 hours.
Actually, I did both calculations at
Okay.
100 and 150, and that is a deal when you're looking at it at that amount of hours invested. I don't think James could hire in a part-time person for that, so I think it's a good deal.
Is this something that we are voting on as far as for ACOG, or is this something you're just saying, hey, here's what we're doing?
You're welcome to have a vote on it if you'd like to. It's not necessary, but it is appropriate for this body if you'd like to. If you have strong feelings about it,
Unless somebody has strong feelings against continuing to move forward, I think that we just consider it an update.
So James, this was originally in your budget,
Yes.
discussed in your budget? Okay.
I've actually budgeted considerably more.
Okay.
Didn't know what the price was gonna come in at, and,
You didn't hear that part.
That change
Listen,
order
I don't
thing
often
that
go to
costs so
meetings where they
much.
say we budgeted more, so I'll ignore it, but I'm like, I'm just happy he thought about it that way. Most don't. They're like,
Unless somebody would like to make a motion.
I still got some more questions.
Sure.
okay.
So the Appalachian Council of Governments, what is y'all's goal? As far as influencing county governments? What's your goal?
Goal is not really to influence county governments. We work with we work here in the 6 counties, so Cherokee, Spartanburg, Greenville, Oconee, Pickens, Anderson. We have a lot of different functions, from aging to grants writing to economic development on the side. Within the planning department, we serve as sort of, a government services operation. We're there to help local governments that can do it. We work a lot more with towns than counties, because they typically have less staff. So we have a person in our office who staffs Central Liberty and Pickens as zoning administrator, like 1 day a week. We do some regional 208 planning. We do some regional transportation planning for the rural areas. We do, and those are contracts with DHEC or DES now and DOT to help them in what they do. We do local planning. We probably have about 6 or 7 local plans we're working on right now, from Campobello to Gaffney to Inman to, different ones that we're working on right now. Belton is coming up, things like that. So we work with local governments. We don't really drive any large-scale agendas. From that standpoint, we really just go into the towns and help them facilitate discussion and help them, recognize what goals they want to do. So we're not really a advocacy group out there.
Thank you.
I suspect if we were trying to do this ourselves, he's our first phone call to say, who do I call at the DOT for?
Or we try and find the information for you. At the end of the
Great questions. Anybody else have questions along this line? Anybody have objection that they want to make a motion to? Thank you for the update. So next up is a discussion of the scenic highway ordinance and potential changes to the amendments. We'd had as many people know, and just for the record, we had a scenic highway application, and in the process of reviewing that application, it kind of came to an awareness that there are some elements of that are kind of quasi-zoning, at least with regard to some limitations of what somebody can do on their own property. And when you have a zoning change, you have a public hearing, and you have signs that go up, and you have letters that go out and things like that. And this didn't have any kind of requirement for that to happen. So Mr. Haney had brought that up and kind of pointed that out, and so I'd like to turn it over to him to.
All right. I'd like to thank y'all for bearing with me while I take you, my goal is to take you through the process of how I came with issue to this ordinance. And at the very last, I will restate my proposed amendment to the ordinance. So first I have to say that I agree with the intent of the scenic highway ordinance. It has a great intent of pulling property owners and the community together to call out areas of interest on the main highway. Unfortunately, the way it's written, it can be hijacked by a group of individuals who are not necessarily in that community or property owners, and under the veil of darkness come in and restrict property owners' land use without them knowing. And that's where I take issue. I think that we can work together and improve some of the wording in this ordinance and come up with something that will ensure that the property owner not only is notified, but also has a say. And going through this, the first thing that popped to mind was what is the real issue? And in the previous meeting, the comment was made, well, we have 200 signatures, the majority should rule. And that's not the case. We are a constitutional republic where the rights of the individual are protected. So I had to go to the U.S. Constitution, Amendment 14, but I'm not going to read that because South Carolina has a constitution, also Article 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 3. And it reads as privileges and immunities, due process, and equal protection of law. These privileges and immunities of a citizen of the state and of the United States under this Constitution shall not be abridged, nor shall any person be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied equal protection of law. All right? So that led me to, okay, this is dealing with property restrictions. Where do I go to find where the property owner should be notified? So I actually went into the zoning law, which is Chapter 29, Article 1. That's Section 629 dash 760 of state code. And I'm not going to read through that, but in there, it really has some checks and balances in there to ensure that the property owner is notified of any land use changes. Not only that, the community is notified, and it gives the property owner a way to voice his concern about the change and to appeal. So now that I realize that, okay, the zoning law at the state level, let's look at the county ordinance dealing with zoning. So I read through the county ordinance, and I came upon what section I thought best fit our application. And that's Section 38-8.5, Item 2, and that's Method 2. And that's the small area rezoning. And in there, it states that any property owner or group of property owners of a parcel or parcels with a combined minimum ownership of at least 500 acres may petition the county council for initial rezoning. No parcel may be included within the rezoning petition under this method which is not contiguous to at least one other parcel that is included in the rezoning petition. Contiguous properties are those properties which are adjacent to one another and share a common border. I said, you know, that sounds like that'll fit well into our scenic highway ordinance. And that will ensure that that property owner is not left in the dark, and that property owner has a say in what's happening to his property, and that it is not restricted. So then I came up with this, and I'm sure it can be tweaked. And basically, item A, everything past the sponsoring agency I added. And that's the property owners or group of property owners of a parcel or parcel within the combined ownership of the property that adjoins the petition highway. No parcel may be included within the scenic highway petition that is not contiguous to at least one other parcel and that is included in the scenic highway petition. Contiguous properties are those properties that are adjacent to one another and share the highway named in the scenic highway petition. Then I shifted everything down and inserted C, which is a direct copy from Section 38-8.5, Item 2, and that's all persons owning a legal interest in the subject or subjects must sign a petition for a scenic highway. Now, my view is this will create a more harmonious outcome between the property owners, community, and the petitioners of the scenic highway. And it will allow us to ensure that you don't have a group of individuals come in under the veil of darkness and restrict property rights without the property owner knowing. Any questions?
I got a question. What property rights are you speaking about? I know billboard was mentioned, but is there anything else that you're talking about that a property owner might be maybe
Well,
not fully informed?
I think anytime, no matter what you're restricting, when you reach inside a person's property without their knowledge and start restricting rights or usage of that property, you've crossed a bound that should not be crossed.
Anything other than billboards?
Yes. So it's junkyards and billboards. Commercial junkyards are not
Okay.
allowed in the scenic highway.
Okay, so really that's the issue to me.
No, the issue, actually, I foresee, if it was me, if I had land on that highway, I would want it designated as a scenic highway. Because then if I go to One, it's a talking point for me. Hey, I live on a scenic highway and I own X amount of acres on the scenic highway. If I was a realtor, I would want it designated as a scenic highway. That's a selling point. My problem is, we have to safeguard the rights of the individual. And this does not do that. This does not alert the property owner that, hey, somebody's trying to reach into your property and restrict your land usage, the way it is written.
Okay, but billboards and junkyards, okay, to me, I see your point fully and everything, but my opinion is that the law as it is now worked, that representatives here made decisions based on whether or not it was a good idea to have a scenic highway on 130. And I'm looking at scenarios, as I imagine, that there could be 250 property owners on a stretch of highway.
Mhm.
And there could be one person that doesn't like that idea and could keep 199 other people from doing what they wanted to do. You said, oh, you would like it. What if you would like it, but one person that lives in New Jersey, and maybe they're on their deathbed, you don't know where that property's gonna go next or anything. One person that doesn't agree is gonna keep that from happening.
No, actually, you could step to the other side of that property and everybody from that other side of the property on down the line can agree to it and, under this proposed change, and make it from there down the scenic highway.
Well,
I think
that's a hypothetical.
Well, that's,
I think my point is more valid, that one person could keep 199 other people from doing what they want to do.
the same is with small area zoning, you're correct. You're right, and that's why I pulled this from the zoning ordinance, because it is a restriction of property use.
I think you're right. It is restriction for billboards and junkyards. But, with that statement carries all these other things in people's minds, like, oh, they're taking away my property rights. So I feel like the representative form of government that we have in our county and in this, planning commission doesn't need to change something it's not broken, so it doesn't need to be fixed. The other idea is that if there's let's say Pickens County has a scenic highway process, I don't think we know what it is. I mean, maybe we could get James to take a look at other places, what might make sense before we just jump on this one idea that you have. I think it would be good to bring some more information.
I have a question.
With that, I'd like to make a motion that we ask James to look into this and come back with information on what other counties are doing, what other scenic highway processes are that would be legitimate to the discussion, and put off making a decision on this until after we get more information. Do we have a second?
No second at the moment. I've got a question, James. One of my concerns, and I don't want us to dwell on the 130, but it just happens to be the most recent situation. One of the concerns that I had at the time is the state of South Carolina did not have a protection mechanism in there, but there was a discussion that might be something forthcoming. And when I say a protection mechanism in there, the first thing in applying for a state designation scenic highway is community buy-in. So if someone gets scenic highway at a local level, then that, in theory, would be the community buy-in to initiate a state-level designation. A state-level designation is much more than junkyards and billboards. A state-level designation is everything from the view lane we control. And if we say all the houses have to be painted orange, then all the houses have to be painted orange. And if all the sidewalks have to be this way or no trees cut, or the state has carte blanche as far as what the applicant might want to ask that it be, that's what's there. It's my understanding that the state is proposing that if somebody makes a state application, that it has to go back to the county of origin for the county to first approve before it then can go back to the state, but that's not currently in the law. Is that still the case?
So, and this goes back, and I included it the last time we talked about this, or the time before last, that, I talked to DOT, and this program is basically on hold with the state right now. They are not accepting applications for any new scenic highways. They are working on changing that state law, and updating the application process. One of the things they've told us they want to include, but obviously they haven't adopted it yet, is that they wanted to have a municipal sponsor, that they will not accept applications from nonprofit groups that are not municipal governments. So their concern is there's a great group of people that are committed to doing highway pickup and cleanup and that want to be responsible for it, but after 25 years, that same group's no longer working to do the work, to do the cleanups, to keep it in that scenic condition. So they want it to be somebody that they know is gonna be around. And the municipal government's one of the groups they think is gonna be around in 25, 30, 40 years, whatever it is. So they have not adopted it yet, but that is one of their key concerns.
So it is a concern until something like that's adopted. Yes, at a county level, we're only talking about junkyards and billboards, and I say only very flippantly because it's still a restriction of your property right, even though it's something that a lot of people could get behind. My concern is using it as a stair step to the next level, and right now there's not a protection against being able to do so. And if it goes to that next level, it's up to the applicant as to what they want to ask the state for, as to what restrictions get put on people's property, because it becomes view lane, not just right of way. So I go back to kind of my original statement of, it does seem like the ordinance is missing. If you're trying to change a zoning, there are nice big signs that go up that says, hey, we're proposing a zoning change. Everybody needs to come out and talk about it, or at least pay attention if you're concerned. And right now, this doesn't say that you even have to contact the contiguous property owners for any of their buy-in, whether that's a 50% buy-in or a 20% buy-in. You don't even have to contact them. If there's enough outside influence and this body says majority rules, then all of a sudden there is a level of infringement to that contiguous owner. So I do think a discussion.
Order, that was almost saying that we make the decision in the way you explained it. I just want to add, for the public's knowledge, is that if we were to approve something like that, the county council has to approve it. It's not us making the decision.
You're correct, but it is a body of, in this case, 7, and then another body of 5
I just
that are
wanted to
making a
clarify
decision over this majority rule situation. So I do believe that there needs to be something in here that says, hey, you need to contact the contiguous property owners. Whether it says that all of them have to have buy-in, I think that's a conversation that should be had. But I do think that this is worth future discussion, to try to see if a paragraph needs to be added of some kind of buy-in, whatever that kind of buy-in is, at least until the state comes up and says, there needs to be another layer of protection.
I think that's the most important part, is in all fairness, is involving the property owners, the people that's gonna be affected. I mean, I don't disagree with that. You hypothetically, when it's presented, the yays and the nays, I mean, you might have to weigh that out as a commission or a council. But it's important to not, I don't necessarily think it's a veil of darkness. I just think it's easy to surround yourself with people that agree with you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's human nature not to seek out a different opinion or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess but I don't disagree with where Mickey's coming from.
Yes.
So my recollection on 38.5 is, so when there's a change in the zoning request, there's a first-class mail letter is sent out. So then you wait for the return. Then there's newspaper advertisement to that effect. And then there's signs put up, and then there's public hearings. It's a very exhaustive process. What if, after all of that, people say, I didn't know? I mean, would we accept that? I didn't know what was going on. I was in probate, or my uncle died and it's his house, or, I mean, is there an end to it? Or do we just say, we did all this and we're still waiting for everybody to respond?
What
It's
about
on you to
certified
be a
mail?
responsible homeowner. I don't know. I mean, I think all that notice is good. I'm just wondering, is there a point when we say, we've done our part,
So
we're done?
currently, there is none, and then, sorry, I think you're gonna say the same thing. And
Okay.
that this is saying that you have to have their signature on a piece of paper. So whether you have to go find them or they come find you, as the sponsor, you have to have that signature to have your application.
Okay.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say that, and also under the small area zoning, does it require the signage and notification, or is it, it does require that also?
So, and that requires us to do that.
Okay.
From my personal standpoint right now, the county ordinance only deals within the right-of-way and doesn't deal within the property, with the exception of billboards and junkyards. I do think that we need to continue this discussion. I don't know that I'm prepared to take in and say, I want to use everything that's involved in zoning and apply it to here, because with zoning, you're actually talking about within the four walls of somebody's private property, and they're asking for a zoning change. And right now, the ordinance as it's written is talking about public right-of-ways with a little bit of influence over into that private property. So either remove those two influences off of the private property restriction, or we come to some discussion with public input that says, one, everybody needs to get a letter, in my opinion, and two, what is the percentage of buy-in? I just know from the example that we first saw, there were two meetings and there was not an effort the first meeting, there was no effort to have said, here's buy-in from the people that are most importantly affected. In the second meeting, it was, here's a few. And by the third, we saw people coming out in opposition. So I do think that there needs to be something. I don't know if I'm prepared to vote on an actual, here's what we do, but I do think that we need to have future meetings about this, is my opinion.
There's one other red flag to me, well, not red flag, but just something to throw out for discussion. All persons owning legal interest must sign. So to me, that's one property owner, I guess, one vote or one signature. So if an LLC owns a parcel and there's 12 members in that LLC, one signature, not 12. And as big as the Kiwi River Preservation Group is, one signature. So it's like California to Rhode Island, right? Everybody gets one signature.
Correct.
That's all.
Just for, purposes of information, I would personally like to see some improvement, but I want to go along with what I heard Mike saying is, I would be for something like 75% of the of the property owners, or something less than 100%. I don't think one person keeping everyone else from doing something that they want to do doesn't make sense to me.
And I'm not nailing down a percentage of having an opinion on that. I do think that that is a great topic for conversation. The question becomes at the moment, Mr. Haney, are you wanting to, you had mentioned making a motion, do you want to put together a motion and see where that goes? Or do you want to say, can we put this on a future agenda with some more additional public input?
Actually, I agree. Or I draw a blank.
Gary?
Gary. I agree with Gary. We should send this to James and to Mr. Root to review and bring it back and make sure that everything is as it should read.
I'll second that motion.
And then from there, we can build upon it, discuss it, dissect it, put it back together. My intention is to ensure, one, that the property owners are notified, and two, that they have some recourse if they don't agree with it. It's, as I said before, private property is one of the things that really set us apart from the other countries in the founding of the United States. And, that's the first time that the average citizen could own land. And I think we need to protect that right with everything we can. And I know we say, well, we all can get behind junkyards. We all can get behind not having junkyards or not having billboards. That's a scary thought, because you should be getting behind protecting the individual's rights, because there may be a time that you need that individual to step up and protect yours. And that's what we should be getting behind, protecting those individual rights.
Can you clarify to James what that motion is? Are you asking them to put together, based on our discussion, something that works within our discussion to build upon? And is that something that Mr. Root can do without being here at the meeting in this discussion?
I think we can go ahead and take what Mr. Haney drafted and make some edits, changes that the attorney sees fit, and have something back to you guys for a more specific discussion.
And I'm guessing you would potentially even take from other counties as to what, if there was something specific that stood out,
I'm happy to pull some of those and just email those to you as a group if you'd like me to.
refer through the discussion. Not part of this
but I'm
motion,
happy
but, okay. Any more discussion about this motion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
It's unanimous.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So motion.